I accidentally caught my fiancée say she's secretly in love with another man and waiting for him to give her an engagement ring while planning to reject mine. So I threw away the ring I bought her and got my savage payback. Hey Reddit, my name is Derek, and I'm 30 years old. What I'm about to tell you happened about 5 weeks ago, and I'm still trying to process everything that went down. I thought I was just going to surprise my girlfriend with some takeout food, but instead I overheard a phone conversation that completely changed the trajectory of my life. My girlfriend Sophia and I had been together for just over 2 years. 2 years and 1 month to be exact. She's 24, and up until this point, I genuinely believed things were solid between us. Both of our families absolutely loved each other. We had that whole perfect couple dynamic going on, and we'd been seriously talking about me moving in with her. Hell, I was even thinking about proposing to her soon. Everything seemed to be falling into place perfectly. Last Thursday, I managed to get off work early because my boss had some conference thing going on that didn't require my presence. I figured this would be the perfect opportunity to surprise Sophia with takeout from this Italian place she absolutely loves. Since we'd been discussing me moving in soon, I already had a key to her apartment, so I let myself in quietly, thinking maybe I could catch her off guard with a romantic gesture. That's when I heard her voice coming from the bedroom. She was on the phone talking pretty loudly, and she sounded genuinely upset. Like really, really upset. I was about to announce myself and let her know I was there, but something about her tone made me stop dead in my tracks in the hallway. There was an intensity to her voice that I'd never heard before. "Maya, I don't know what to do," she was saying, through what sounded like tears. I figured she was talking to her sister about some work drama or maybe family issues. Typical sister-to-sister conversation stuff. So I just stood there in the hallway, waiting for what seemed like a good moment to let her know I was there without interrupting something important. Then she said something that made my blood run completely cold, and my heart jumped straight into my throat. "I found Derek's ring yesterday when I was putting away his laundry." My entire world shifted in that moment. She had found the ring, but how was that even possible? I had that thing buried under what felt like 6 pairs of socks in my dresser drawer. That ring had cost me almost $5,500, and I'd been hiding it for weeks, waiting for the perfect moment to propose to the woman I thought was the love of my life. "I know he's going to propose soon, and I just can't do it," she continued through her tears, and I felt like someone had just kicked me square in the stomach. But then she said something that made everything infinitely worse. "I can't stop thinking about Tyler." Tyler, her ex-boyfriend from college. The guy she had dated for 3 solid years before we got together. She had always told me that relationship was completely over and done with. Ancient history that didn't matter anymore. I felt like someone had literally kicked me in the stomach and knocked all the air out of my lungs. Here I was, standing in her hallway with takeout from her favorite restaurant, while she was on the phone telling her sister that she was still thinking about her ex-boyfriend. Meanwhile, I'd been planning our future together, researching wedding venues in my spare time, and dreaming about spending the rest of my life with this woman. "Maya, I've been texting him for months trying to get him to talk to me," she said, and now she was full-on crying. The desperation in her voice was palpable. "He barely responds to me, like maybe one word answers if I'm lucky. But I just can't get over him. I can't move on." Months. She had been texting her ex-boyfriend for months while we were together, while I was falling asleep next to her every single night, thinking that everything in our relationship was absolutely perfect. While I was lying there making mental plans about our future, she was apparently lying there thinking about another man. A man who clearly wanted nothing to do with her based on his minimal responses. She went on and on about how I was perfect on paper, how I treated her well, how our families got along beautifully, how everything about our relationship made logical sense. But none of that mattered because I wasn't Tyler. That was the name that lived in the back of her mind, occupying space that I thought belonged to thoughts about our future together. While I was standing right in front of her, making real concrete plans for our life together, she was still mentally stuck in some fantasy about a guy who had clearly moved on years ago. Perfect on paper. That's what I was to her. I wasn't the love of her life or her soulmate, or any of the things I thought I was. I was just a safe option, a backup plan dressed up like a romantic relationship. I was just some guy who checked all the right boxes, but didn't light up whatever fantasy she was still desperately holding onto about her college boyfriend. Her sister must have pushed back on something she said, because Sophia's whole energy shifted and she got defensive, like she knew she was exposing too much of her true feelings. She admitted that she probably should break up with me, but then said she couldn't bring herself to do it. According to her, I was the one who kept everything in her life together, who made her feel stable and taken care of. That was apparently enough for now, at least in her mind, even though it clearly wasn't what she actually wanted. Apparently, she needed more time to sort through her feelings. More time while I was out here researching different ring cuts and browsing wedding venues online during my lunch breaks. She was trying to figure out if she even wanted me in her life long term, while I was already mentally living in the next chapter of our story together. I was planning our engagement, thinking about where we'd have the ceremony, wondering what our kids might look like someday. Meanwhile, she was still stuck rereading the prologue of a relationship with someone who had already left and clearly wanted nothing to do with her. Then she started wondering out loud what would happen if I actually went through with proposing, and she said yes. Not because she loved me and wanted to spend her life with me, but because the thought of being alone absolutely terrified her. She admitted to Maya that she knew this wouldn't be fair to me, which was honestly the first acknowledgement I'd heard that she understood how fucked up this entire situation was. At least she had enough self-awareness to recognize that much, even if she wasn't planning to do anything about it. I heard her sister saying something on the other end of the line, and then Sophia actually laughed a little through her tears. "Yeah, you're right," she said. "Poor Derek has no idea I'm still in love with someone else." Poor Derek. That was me. Poor clueless Derek, who had been spending his evenings planning what he thought would be the perfect proposal, researching her favorite flowers and thinking about romantic locations. Poor Derek, who had been completely oblivious to the fact that his girlfriend was secretly pining for her ex-boyfriend who wanted absolutely nothing to do with her. They talked for several more minutes about how complicated everything was and how she didn't know what to do with her life. Maya seemed to be telling her that she needed to make a decision, either commit fully to me or break up with me, which was honestly the most logical advice anyone had given in this entire conversation. But Sophia kept making excuses and finding reasons to avoid making any real decisions. "I can't just throw away what Derek and I have built together," she said. "He's been so good to me, and our families would be absolutely devastated if we broke up." Our families, right? She couldn't break up with her backup boyfriend because it would disappoint the parents and cause awkward family gatherings. She was more worried about managing other people's expectations than she was about being honest with the person she was supposedly in a relationship with. I backed out of the apartment as quietly as I possibly could, my hands shaking as I tried not to make any noise that might alert her to my presence. I sat in my car for a full 20 minutes, just staring at the steering wheel, trying to process what I had just overheard. My entire world had just been turned completely upside down in the span of one phone conversation. The woman I thought I was going to marry, the person I was planning to spend the rest of my life with, had been using me as a placeholder while actively chasing after someone who clearly wanted nothing to do with her. The Italian food got cold in the passenger seat while I sat there, unable to even think about eating. I just drove home in a complete daze, trying to wrap my head around what I had just learned about the person I thought I knew better than anyone else in the world. That night, Sophia texted me asking if I wanted to come over and watch a movie, acting like absolutely nothing had happened. She was texting me with the same sweet, casual tone she always used, as if she hadn't just spent an hour on the phone with her sister talking about how she was still in love with her ex-boyfriend and how I was just some guy who was perfect on paper, but would never measure up to Tyler. I made some excuse about being tired and stayed home instead, knowing I couldn't look at her face without completely losing it. I spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, my mind racing as I replayed every moment of our relationship that suddenly made perfect sense. All those times she would go completely quiet when certain songs came on the radio, songs that probably reminded her of Tyler. How she would get weird and distant when we drove past certain places that reminded her of her college days. The way she would sometimes look at me like she was seeing someone else entirely, like she was mentally replacing my face with his. I had been so incredibly stupid. All the signs had been there right in front of me, and I had just chosen to ignore them because I wanted so desperately to believe that we were happy together. I had been willfully blind to all the red flags because acknowledging them would have meant confronting the possibility that our relationship wasn't what I thought it was. The worst part was realizing that while I had been falling deeper and deeper in love with her over the past 2 years, she had been falling deeper into some fantasy about getting back together with a guy who had clearly moved on with his life years ago. 25 months of my life, 25 months of thinking I had found the one, of building what I thought was a solid foundation for our future together. 25 months of her settling for me while actively dreaming about being with someone else. I barely slept that night. I just kept replaying her words over and over in my head. Poor Derek has no idea I'm still in love with someone else. The way she had said it, like I was some charity case she was doing a favor for, like I should be grateful that she was even bothering to waste her time with me while she pined for someone who wanted nothing to do with her. I didn't know what to do with this information. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to call her out on all the lies and the emotional cheating. But I also knew that I needed to really think this through carefully, because once you open that door, there's no closing it again. Once you confront someone about something like this, the relationship is effectively over. And I had a feeling there was more to this story than just some leftover feelings for an ex-boyfriend. As it turned out, I was absolutely right about that. I was way more right than I ever wanted to be. The next day was absolute torture. I couldn't focus on anything at work, couldn't force myself to eat even though I knew I should, and couldn't think about anything except what I had overheard the night before. Every single time my phone buzzed with a text message from Sophia, and she was texting me throughout the day with her usual sweet, normal messages, I felt physically sick to my stomach. She was acting like everything was perfectly fine between us, like she hadn't just spent an hour telling her sister how she was still in love with another man. She came over Friday night like absolutely nothing had happened. She walked through my front door with this huge, bright smile on her face, gave me a kiss hello, and started talking about her day at work like we were just a normal, happy couple. The entire time she was chatting away, I was sitting there thinking about how she had been secretly texting Tyler behind my back for months, wondering if she had texted him that day, wondering if she was thinking about him while she was sitting next to me. "You seem really quiet tonight," she said, curling up next to me on the couch and looking at me with what seemed like genuine concern. "Is everything okay, babe?" Babe. She called me babe while secretly being in love with someone else, while actively trying to reconnect with her ex-boyfriend behind my back. "Just tired," I told her, forcing myself to sound normal. "It's been a long day at work." We ended up watching some Netflix show, but I wasn't paying attention to any of it. I just kept glancing at her phone every single time it buzzed with a notification, wondering if it was him, wondering how long this had actually been going on, wondering what else I didn't know about the person I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with. About an hour into the show, she got up to use the bathroom, and she left her phone sitting right there on the coffee table. The screen was still lit up from a recent notification, and I could see that it wasn't locked. I know that going through someone's phone is wrong. I know it's a complete violation of privacy and trust. But finding out that your girlfriend has been emotionally cheating on you kind of changes the rules, doesn't it? She had already violated our relationship in the worst possible way, so why should I be expected to respect her privacy when she clearly hadn't respected our relationship? My hands were literally shaking as I picked up her phone. Part of me was desperately hoping that I wouldn't find anything, that maybe I had somehow misunderstood the phone conversation I had overheard. Maybe it wasn't as bad as it had sounded. Maybe there was some reasonable explanation for everything. I was completely wrong. It was so much worse than I could have ever imagined. I scrolled through her messages with Tyler, and honestly, I wanted to throw up right there on my own couch. This wasn't just some leftover feelings or casual catching up with an ex. This was full-blown emotional cheating that had been going on for 10 months. 10 entire months. The messages started out innocent enough, with things like, "Hey stranger, how are you? And I saw your LinkedIn post about the new job. Congratulations." The kind of normal ex-girlfriend stuff that maybe could be explained away as just being friendly. Tyler's responses were telling a completely different story. He was either giving her complete silence or responding with one-word answers like, "Thanks," or "Cool," or "Glad you're doing well." The guy was clearly not interested in rekindling anything with her, but she just kept pushing and pushing, becoming more and more desperate with each message. But then the messages started getting progressively more desperate and pathetic as time went on. The really recent ones were even worse, because you could literally see how desperate she was getting as our relationship became more serious, and she realized I might actually propose soon. There were messages like, "I'm seeing someone new, but I can't stop thinking about you." And, "I would leave Derek in a heartbeat if you just said the word." She would leave me in a heartbeat for a guy who wouldn't even text her back properly. She was willing to throw away our entire relationship, everything we had built together over more than 2 years, for someone who was clearly not interested in having any kind of relationship with her. The most recent message was from just 3 days ago. 3 days before I found all of this out. It said, "I think Derek is going to propose soon and I'm panicking. You're supposed to be the one asking me to marry you, not him." Reading those words felt like getting punched in the gut. While I had been excitedly planning what I thought would be the happiest moment of both our lives, She was panicking about it and wishing it was someone else entirely. I quickly took screenshots of the worst messages and sent them to myself, then carefully deleted the evidence from her sent folder so she wouldn't know I had seen them. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely type, and I was terrified she would come back from the bathroom and catch me going through her phone. She came back from the bathroom and immediately snuggled up next to me like nothing had happened, like she hadn't just left evidence of months of betrayal sitting right there on the coffee table. "What are you looking at on your phone?" she asked, noticing that I was staring at my screen. "Just work emails," I lied, my voice probably sounding strained even though I was trying to keep it normal. "Ugh, work is so boring," she said playfully, taking my phone out of my hands and setting it aside. "Pay attention to me instead." Then she kissed me and said, "I love you so much, Derek. You make me so happy." I wanted to throw up right there. She had just told me she loved me, claiming I made her happy, after I had just finished reading 10 months' worth of her begging another guy to take her back, telling him she would leave me without a second thought if he would just give her the chance. The rest of the night was pure torture. She kept being all affectionate and sweet, talking about random future plans we supposedly had together. A concert we were supposed to go to next month. Maybe taking a trip somewhere for our 2-year anniversary. Our 2-year anniversary, when I had been planning to propose to someone who had been emotionally cheating on me for almost half of our entire relationship. After she finally fell asleep, I couldn't help myself. I went through more of her phone, digging deeper into what I now knew was a complete lie of a relationship. I found some deleted message threads that I was able to recover, and they were even worse than what I had already seen. There were messages to her friends talking about Tyler, messages to her sister that confirmed everything I had overheard during that phone call. But the absolute worst part was finding her photo gallery. She still had pictures of her and Tyler from college. And I'm not talking about just a few old photos buried somewhere in her camera roll that she had forgotten to delete. I'm talking about recent screenshots of his social media profiles, pictures she had saved of places they used to go together, photos of them that she had apparently been looking at regularly. She even had a whole album labeled Memories that was nothing but photos of the two of them together. She had created an entire album dedicated to her ex-boyfriend while we had been dating for almost 2 years. I found her Pinterest boards too, and that discovery made me feel even sicker than everything else combined. All that wedding planning stuff that I thought was about us, that I thought meant she was excited about our future together. When I looked closer, I realized that half of those pins were from when she was still dating Tyler. She had been planning her dream wedding with him in mind this entire time, not me. Even her vision of our future together was really just her recycling old dreams about marrying someone else. I barely slept that night. I just laid there next to her, watching her sleep peacefully, wondering who the hell this person really was. The woman lying next to me was a complete stranger. Everything I thought I knew about her, everything I thought we had together, had been a complete fabrication. In the morning, she woke up all happy and normal, just like every other day. She made us coffee, chatted about her plans for the day, gave me a kiss goodbye before leaving for work. After she left, I sat in my kitchen staring at those screenshots on my phone, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do with this information. Part of me wanted to confront her immediately, to call her out on everything and demand an explanation. But I also knew that once I opened that door, our relationship would be completely over. There would be no coming back from this kind of betrayal. But honestly, wasn't it already over? You can't unknow what I now knew. You can't unfeel this level of betrayal. You can't go back to being happy with someone who has been using you as a placeholder while desperately chasing after their ex-boyfriend. The more I thought about everything, the angrier I became, not just at her, but at myself for being so completely blind to what was happening right in front of me. All those times she would get distant or weird, and I would ask what was wrong, and she would brush me off with nothing, just tired or work stress. It was never work stress. It was Tyler stress. She was probably thinking about him every single time she was with me. Every "I love you" had been a lie. Every conversation about our future had been her just going through the motions. Every time we were intimate, she was probably wishing I was someone else entirely. I called in sick to work and spent the entire day going through everything in my mind, trying to make sense of it all. But there was really nothing to make sense of. The situation was actually pretty straightforward. She was still in love with her ex-boyfriend and had been lying to me about it for months. The only question now was what the hell I was going to do about it. Around noon, my mom texted me asking if I was excited about the family dinner this weekend. Right. The family dinner. I had completely forgotten about it with all this Tyler drama consuming my thoughts. My mom had been planning this thing for weeks, and it was supposed to be this big celebration. Both sets of parents were going to be there, along with my little sister Zoe, Sophia's sister Maya, and even my grandparents were supposed to come. It was supposed to be this huge, special family gathering, and everyone basically thought I was going to propose. My stomach dropped as I realized what this meant. Both of our families were expecting an engagement announcement. They had been dropping hints for weeks about special occasions and exciting news. Sophia's dad had even pulled me aside last weekend and said he was looking forward to officially welcoming me to the family. They were all making plans and having expectations based on complete lies. My family was ready to welcome this girl as their new daughter-in-law, while she was secretly begging her ex-boyfriend to take her back. Her family was treating me like I was going to be the perfect son-in-law, while their daughter was using me as nothing more than a backup plan. All of these people who loved us and cared about our relationship were being completely deceived. That's when it hit me. If Sophia wanted to keep playing this game of pretending to be a happy couple while secretly texting Tyler behind everyone's backs, maybe it was time for the truth to come out. Not just between the two of us, but between everyone who was being lied to and manipulated. I know that probably sounds harsh, but think about it for a minute. These people genuinely loved us. They were investing emotionally in our relationship, making plans for our future, getting excited about what they thought was coming. They deserved to know what kind of person they were really dealing with. They deserved to know that the relationship they were celebrating was built on lies and emotional cheating. Plus, if I confronted Sophia privately, she would just make excuses or promise to change or whatever manipulation tactic she thought would work. She had been lying to me for 10 months straight. What would stop her from telling a few more lies to save face? But if everyone knew the truth at the same time, there would be no way to spin it. No way to make excuses when both sets of parents were staring at evidence of her emotional cheating. The first thing I did was drive to the jewelry store and return the engagement ring. The sales lady processed the return without asking any questions, which I was grateful for. $5,500 back in my account. I kept the receipt though. I had a feeling I might need it as evidence. Then I started planning. The dinner was scheduled for Saturday night at my parents' house. Everyone would be there, everyone would be expecting good news, and instead, they were going to get the truth about who Sophia really was and what our relationship had actually been like. I spent hours going through those screenshots I had taken, carefully deciding which ones would have the most impact and clearly demonstrate what had been going on behind everyone's backs. I wanted to make sure I had undeniable evidence that couldn't be explained away or dismissed as some kind of misunderstanding. Friday was a complete blur of trying to act normal, while internally planning everything out for the next evening. Sophia texted me asking what she should wear to the dinner because she wanted to make a good impression on everyone. Something nice, I told her, the irony not lost on me. It's going to be a memorable night. Saturday finally arrived, and I kept checking those screenshots on my phone throughout the day, making sure I had everything ready to go. The ring return receipt was sitting in my wallet like a loaded weapon. The evidence was organized and ready to present. Part of me felt bad about doing this in front of both families, but then I remembered those messages. I would leave Derek in a heartbeat if you just said the word, and you're the only one I've ever really loved. She had made her choice when she started texting Tyler 10 months ago. She had made her choice every single day for 10 months when she decided to keep lying to me and to both of our families. Now she could live with the consequences of those choices. My phone kept buzzing throughout the day with excited texts from various family members. My mom was telling me she had picked up sparkling cider specifically for toasting. Sophia's mom sent me a message thanking me for making her daughter so happy. Everyone was so excited for what they thought was coming. If only they knew what was really about to happen. If only they knew who they were really dealing with. Saturday night finally came, and I was honestly nervous as hell. I arrived at my parents' house around 6 p.m., and both families were already there, chatting and laughing in the living room. Sophia arrived about 10 minutes after me, and when she saw me, she practically glowed with happiness. She gave me this huge, enthusiastic hug and whispered in my ear, "You look so handsome tonight. I'm so excited for this dinner." My stomach was churning, but I managed to smile back at her. Looking around the table, I could see both sets of parents watching us with these proud, expectant expressions on their faces. My mom kept making meaningful eye contact with me, like she was expecting some kind of big announcement at any moment. Sophia's dad kept grinning and nodding at me approvingly. Dinner started off completely normal. Everyone was chatting and laughing, passing around my mom's famous lasagna, talking about work and weekend plans and normal family dinner conversation. Sophia kept squeezing my hand under the table and shooting me these sweet, loving looks that probably would have melted my heart a few days ago. Now they just made me feel sick. About halfway through the meal, my dad stood up with his drink in hand. "It's so wonderful to have both families together tonight," he said, looking around the table with genuine warmth. "Derek and Sophia, you two have something really special together." Everyone raised their glasses in agreement. Sophia was absolutely beaming with happiness. "To young love," my dad continued, "and to the exciting future that lies ahead for both of you." Everyone clinked glasses and took sips of their drinks. Her parents were practically glowing with pride. My grandparents kept nodding approvingly, and even Maya was grinning like she knew some wonderful secret was about to be revealed. "This is so nice," Sophia said to the entire table, her voice filled with genuine happiness. "Having everyone together like this feels so right. It's like we're all one big family already. One big family, built on lies and deception that she had been maintaining for 10 months. The conversation naturally shifted toward relationships and the future. My mom started talking about how mature we both were and how refreshing it was to see young people who were really committed to each other. "It's so rare to see couples who are completely devoted to each other these days," Sophia's dad said, looking at us with obvious pride. "No games, no drama, just genuine love and respect. No games, no drama." I almost laughed out loud at that comment. That's when I knew it was time to end this charade. I couldn't sit there for another second, listening to everyone praise a relationship that was built on emotional cheating and lies. "Speaking of being devoted to each other," I said, looking directly at Sophia, "how's Tyler doing these days?" The entire table went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop in that dining room. Sophia's face went completely white, all the color draining from her cheeks in an instant. "What?" she said with a nervous laugh, her voice already shaking. "Why would I know how Tyler's doing?" The moment I mentioned Tyler's name, her mom looked completely confused, like she couldn't believe I had just said that name out loud at what was supposed to be a celebration dinner. Sophia started to panic immediately, her voice becoming shaky as she tried to figure out where I was going with this and how much I actually knew. I didn't waste any time with subtle hints or beating around the bush. "Well, based on your text messages, I figured you two were still pretty close," I said, pulling out my phone with the screenshots ready to go. I held up my phone so she could see exactly what I had found. I gave her the choice. She could explain this to everyone herself, or I could read the messages out loud. She immediately whispered that we should talk about this in private, that this wasn't the time or place for this kind of conversation. Not a chance in hell. Everyone at that table thought this dinner was leading up to a proposal announcement. They all deserved to know the truth about what they had been supporting and celebrating. My dad asked what was going on, his voice filled with confusion and growing concern. So I started reading the messages out loud. Messages from Sophia to Tyler, telling him how much she missed him, how letting him go was the biggest mistake she had ever made, how she thought about him every single day. Her mom audibly gasped. Her dad's face changed instantly from confusion to anger as he realized what he was hearing. I kept going, reading more messages where she told Tyler that I was a good guy, but that I would never be him, that she couldn't stop thinking about their relationship. The silence that fell over the table was deafening. Sophia was crying now, but I wasn't finished yet. I read the timestamps out loud, messages from last month, messages from 4 weeks ago, and then the most recent one from just 3 days earlier. That was the message where she told Tyler that she would leave me in a heartbeat if he just said the word. You could practically hear the room crack under the weight of that revelation. Sophia was begging me to stop, saying that I was taking everything out of context and that the messages didn't mean what they sounded like. I asked her directly what context made 10 months of messages, begging her ex-boyfriend to take her back acceptable behavior. No one at that table had an answer for that question, not even her. Then I pulled out the ring return receipt from my wallet and placed it on the table where everyone could see it. My mom went completely pale when she realized what she was looking at. Everyone at that table suddenly understood what tonight was originally supposed to be about, and the weight of that realization hit them all at once. Her mom started crying quietly into her napkin. My grandma looked absolutely disgusted, shaking her head in disbelief. Maya, who had been silent up until this point, finally spoke up and called her sister out for lying to everyone. "Sophia, how could you do this to Derek? How could you do this to all of us?" she said, her voice filled with anger and disappointment. Sophia tried one last desperate attempt to salvage the situation. "I do love you, Derek," she said through her tears. "I really do love you." But I threw her own words right back at her. The exact words she had written to Tyler just 3 days earlier. Her dad snapped at that point, asking her what she meant by those messages, if not exactly what she had written. My little sister Zoe, who had been quietly observing everything, delivered what was probably the coldest observation of the entire evening. She pointed out that Tyler wasn't even responding to Sophia's messages, that she had been desperately chasing after a fantasy while dragging me along as her backup plan. The truth of that statement hung in the air like a weight. "I think you need to leave," my mom said quietly, but her voice carried absolute authority. "This dinner was supposed to celebrate your relationship with our son, but there's clearly nothing to celebrate here. This is the most selfish thing I've ever witnessed," her dad said, standing up from the table. "Derek has been nothing but good to you, and this is how you repay him? By lying to him and to all of us for months?" Sophia looked around the table desperately, hoping that anyone, would defend her, or at least show her some sympathy. But everyone was completely done with her. Even her own family had turned against her after hearing the evidence of what she had been doing. The dinner was over, our relationship was over, and everyone finally knew the truth about who she really was and what our relationship had actually been like. As she gathered her things to leave, you could see the reality of the situation finally hitting her. She had lost not just me, but the respect and support of both families. She had gambled everything on a fantasy about getting back together with someone who clearly wanted nothing to do with her, and now she was walking away with nothing at all. The silence after she left was deafening. Nobody knew quite what to say or how to process what had just happened. My mom was the first to speak, telling me how sorry she was and how proud she was of me for handling it the way I did. Both sets of parents expressed their disgust at what Sophia had done and their support for my decision to expose the truth. It wasn't the family dinner any of us had expected, but it was the family dinner that needed to happen. Everyone finally knew the truth, and I could finally start moving forward with my life. The days following the dinner were absolutely brutal. Word travels incredibly fast when you blow up a relationship in front of both families, and social media made everything even worse than it would have been otherwise. Monday morning, I woke up to 52 missed calls and over 250 text messages waiting for me. Most of them were from Sophia, but some were from her friends, mutual friends we had, and even people I barely knew who had somehow heard about what happened at the family dinner. Sophia's messages were a complete mix of desperate apologies and straight-up emotional manipulation. They started off with things like, "I'm so sorry, baby, please forgive me," and evolved into, "You embarrassed me in front of my entire family. And that was cruel, even for you. Cruel, even for me." As if I was the one who had been lying and emotionally cheating for 10 months straight. But the really interesting developments started happening when other people got involved in the situation. Apparently, Sophia had been running her mouth to friends about the whole thing, trying to spin the narrative like I was somehow the bad guy in all of this. Her best friend Ashley called me around noon, asking what had actually happened on Saturday night because Sophia was apparently telling everyone that I had ambushed her with fake screenshots. Fake screenshots. She was actually claiming that I had somehow edited 10 months worth of her begging Tyler to take her back. So I sent Ashley the real screenshots directly from Sophia's phone, and within an hour, Ashley called me back sounding absolutely shocked by what she had seen. It turns out that Sophia had been complaining about me to her friends for months, telling them that I was getting too serious too fast and that she felt pressured by the pace of our relationship. Getting too serious too fast, while I was out shopping for engagement rings, thinking she was just as invested in our future as I was. Ashley told me that Sophia had mentioned thinking about Tyler lately, but she had claimed it was just normal nostalgia that everyone experiences sometimes. Her friends had figured it was completely normal to think about ex-boyfriends occasionally. What wasn't normal, however, was texting them daily for 10 months and begging them to take you back while you were in a serious relationship with someone else. Tuesday, my buddy Mason called asking if it was true that I had exposed my girlfriend at a family dinner. News travels fast, apparently. His girlfriend knew Sophia's cousin or something like that, and she had heard that I read Sophia's private text messages out loud in front of everyone. "Yeah, I did," I told him. She was emotionally cheating, and both families thought I was going to propose to her. They deserved to know who they were actually supporting. I explained that it was brutal, but so was finding out that your girlfriend of almost 2 years had never actually wanted to be with you in the first place. Wednesday brought the inevitable social media drama that I had been dreading. Sophia posted some cryptic content on Instagram about people showing their true colors and learning who really has your back when things get difficult. It was classic victim mentality posting, trying to make herself look like the wronged party in a situation where she had been the one doing the lying and cheating. But then my sister Zoe commented on the post with, "Maybe don't text your ex for 10 months if you want people to have your back." And it turned into a full-blown public argument between the two of them right there in the comments section. Other people started commenting, asking what had happened and what Zoe was talking about. Someone posted, "Didn't Derek and Sophia just have a big family dinner?" And the whole thing just spiraled from there. I stayed completely off social media during all of this, but Zoe kept me updated on the drama as it unfolded. Apparently, Sophia ended up deleting the original post after her mom told her that she was embarrassing the family even further with her public complaints. Thursday, her dad called me to apologize again for his daughter's behavior, and then he asked me a question I had been dreading. Were there more messages that I hadn't shared at the dinner? I told him that there were more, but that sharing them wouldn't help anyone at this point. When he pressed me and asked how bad the additional messages were, I was honest with him. I told him that what I had shared on Saturday night was essentially the PG-rated version of what I had found. He went quiet for a long while after I said that, and then he said something that actually surprised me. He told me that his daughter had made adult choices, and now she could live with adult consequences. There would be no pressure from their family for me to work things out or give her another chance or any of that nonsense that I had been worried about. Friday was when Tyler finally reached out to me directly. He messaged me on Instagram saying that he had no idea Sophia had been doing all of this behind my back. He explained that she had been texting him for months, but he had been ignoring most of her messages because he wasn't interested in rekindling anything with her. He didn't even realize that she had a serious boyfriend, let alone that she was planning to get engaged. I told him that it wasn't his fault that she was obsessed with their past relationship. He told me that she had kept trying to get him to meet up with her so they could talk about their relationship. But as far as he was concerned, there was nothing to talk about. They had broken up over 2 years ago, and he had completely moved on with his life. It turns out that she had been telling Tyler completely different stories about our relationship than what she was telling me. She had made it sound to him like we were having serious problems and that we might break up soon. Meanwhile, she was telling me that we had a solid future together and that she could see us getting married. She was literally living in 2 different realities and telling completely contradictory stories to different people. Tyler said that after hearing about what had happened at the family dinner, he had finally blocked her number completely. Smart man, though it took him long enough to do it. By Friday night, I was completely exhausted from all the drama and constant attention. My phone had been going off constantly throughout the entire week with people wanting details, trying to play mediator, or just wanting to insert themselves into the situation for gossip purposes. I finally decided to turn my phone off completely and went to bed early, desperate for some peace and quiet. The next morning, I woke up feeling genuinely different for the first time since this whole ordeal began. The anger that had been consuming me was finally starting to fade, and it was being replaced by something else entirely. Relief, maybe. It felt like I'd been carrying this incredibly heavy weight around for months without even realizing it, and I had finally been able to put it down. Yeah, the past week had absolutely sucked. Yeah, dealing with everyone's reactions and opinions and drama had been annoying as hell. But for the first time in months, I felt like I could actually breathe properly. There was no more wondering why Sophia seemed distant sometimes, or trying to figure out why she would get weird when certain songs came on the radio. No more trying to decode her moods or figure out why certain things would randomly set her off or make her go quiet. The truth was finally out in the open. All the games were over. And I was finally free to find someone who actually wanted to be with me instead of someone who was just settling for me while dreaming about being with someone else. It had been the worst week of my life in many ways, but it was also somehow the best week I'd had in a very long time. 2 weeks after the family dinner, I was genuinely starting to feel normal again. The constant stream of desperate messages from Sophia had finally slowed down to maybe 1 or 2 pathetic texts per day that I would immediately delete without reading. I had blocked her on absolutely everything, but she kept finding new and creative ways to reach out to me. Fake Instagram accounts, having mutual friends message me on her behalf, even sending me emails from different email addresses she had created. The content of her messages was always exactly the same, though. "Sorry, please forgive me, we can work through this. It was all just a big misunderstanding." These were classic manipulation tactics that honestly might have worked on me if I hadn't seen 10 months of concrete evidence proving otherwise. I had been staying busy to keep my mind off everything, and it was actually pretty funny how much free time I suddenly had when I wasn't constantly worried about whether my girlfriend was secretly texting her ex-boyfriend. My family had been absolutely amazing through everything. My mom was checking on me every single day. My dad had taken me out for several guys' nights, and even Zoe had invited me to hang out with her and her friends, which was sweet, but made me feel old as hell. They all kept telling me how proud they were of how I had handled the entire situation, and how I deserved so much better than what Sophia had put me through. The weird thing was that I was actually doing genuinely better. Yeah, it absolutely sucked to find out that someone you loved had been using you as a backup plan while chasing after their ex. But there was something incredibly freeing about finally knowing the truth and not having to live a lie anymore. No more walking on eggshells wondering why she seemed distant. No more trying to decode her moods or figure out why certain things would trigger weird reactions from her. I wasn't living in a fantasy anymore. I was living in reality, and reality was actually pretty good. Wednesday night, I was at home relaxing and watching TV when I heard someone knocking on my front door. This wasn't normal knocking either. It was desperate, frantic pounding like there was some kind of emergency happening outside. I looked through the peephole, and my stomach immediately dropped when I saw who it was. Sophia was standing on my porch, crying hysterically. Her hair was a complete mess. Her makeup was running down her face in black streaks, and she was still wearing scrubs from the hospital where she worked. She looked like she had driven straight over from work in a complete panic, probably having some kind of breakdown. "Derek, please!" she called out, loud enough for my neighbors to definitely hear her. "I know you're in there. I can see the lights are on. I just want to talk to you." I stayed exactly where I was on the couch and turned up the volume on the TV. There was absolutely nothing she could say at this point that would change what she had done, and I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of getting any kind of reaction from me. She kept knocking for what felt like forever. The desperate pleading got louder and more frantic as she realized that I wasn't going to answer the door. "Derek, I'm sorry. I know I messed up, but we can work through this together. I'll delete Tyler's number, I'll change my phone number, I'll do whatever you want me to do." Whatever I wanted her to do. How about going back in time and not lying to me for 10 straight months? How about not emotionally cheating on me while I was planning our future together? "Please just open the door and let me explain everything," she continued through her tears. The texts weren't what they seemed like. I was just confused and scared about our relationship moving so fast. Right? 10 months of "I still love you" messages to her ex-boyfriend were just confusion about our relationship timeline. I could hear her crying even harder now, but I didn't move from my spot on the couch. She had had plenty of opportunities to be honest with me over the past 10 months. Every single day for 10 months, she had chosen to keep lying to my face. Every night, she had gone to sleep next to me while secretly wishing I was someone else entirely. "Derek, I made a mistake. Tyler doesn't matter to me. You're the one I want to be with," she shouted, her voice getting more desperate. I was just having doubts, but everyone has doubts sometimes, right? Doubts. That's what she was calling it. Not emotional cheating, not betrayal, not using me as a safety net while she chased after her ex-boyfriend who wanted nothing to do with her. Just doubts. The knocking became even more desperate and frantic. She was probably worried that my neighbors would call the police or something, which honestly would have been fine with me. Let them see exactly what kind of person she really was. "I'll go to therapy. I'll do couples counseling. Whatever it takes to fix this relationship," she pleaded. "We had something really special, Derek. Don't throw it away over one mistake." One mistake. A mistake that had lasted 10 months and involved her planning our entire future together while secretly wanting to be with someone else. Some mistake indeed. She tried a completely different approach when the begging wasn't working. She started getting angry and entitled, like I somehow owed her something after everything she had done. "Derek, you're being ridiculous," she called out, her tone shifting from desperate to demanding. "You can't ignore me forever. We need to talk about this like adults." Adults? That was rich coming from someone who had been sneaking around texting her ex-boyfriend behind her partner's back for 10 months straight. Adults don't lie to two families about their true feelings while planning a fake future with someone they're using as a backup plan. Adults don't spend almost a year emotionally cheating and then show up at someone's door demanding to be heard. "Fine," she finally yelled, her voice filled with frustration and anger. "Be a child about it. But you know what we had was real. You know that I love you. Real. The only thing that had been real about our relationship was my feelings and my commitment. Everything else had been her going through the motions while fantasizing about Tyler and wishing she was somewhere else entirely. She tried knocking a few more times, but she was clearly running out of steam. Eventually, I heard her footsteps as she walked back toward her car, still crying loudly enough for the neighbors to hear. I watched through the peephole as she got into her car, and part of me almost felt bad seeing her that upset and desperate. But then I remembered those screenshots. I would leave Derek in a heartbeat if you just said the word. Any sympathy I might have felt disappeared instantly. She had made her choice a long time ago. About 10 minutes after she left, I found a handwritten note that she had shoved under my front door. I picked it up and almost threw it directly into the trash without reading it, but curiosity got the better of me. Derek, I know you hate me right now, but I need you to know that I love you, it read. I was stupid and confused, and I handled everything completely wrong. But my feelings for you are real. Tyler was just a fantasy, a memory I couldn't let go of. You are my reality and my future if you'll have me. I'll wait as long as it takes for you to forgive me, because I know we're meant to be together. I'm sorry for everything. Sophia. I read the note twice, then walked straight to the kitchen and threw it in the trash. Meant to be together. We were never meant to be together. I had just been convenient, available, and safe. I was the backup plan while she chased someone who clearly wanted nothing to do with her, someone who had moved on with his life years ago. The next morning, I woke up feeling lighter somehow, like her showing up at my house and me refusing to answer the door had been some kind of final test that I had passed. There was no more wondering if I should give her another chance, or if I was being too harsh in my judgment. She had shown her true colors by showing up crying and manipulative, trying to guilt me into taking her back. I had shown mine by being strong enough not to cave to emotional manipulation and desperate theatrics. My phone buzzed with a text from my dad asking how I was doing. Instead of my usual hanging in there response, I sent back, actually doing really good, and I genuinely meant it. For the first time in weeks, I felt truly good about where my life was heading. Yeah, the last few weeks had absolutely sucked in every possible way, but they had also shown me what I was really made of as a person. I didn't beg for someone who clearly didn't want me. I didn't make excuses for completely inexcusable behavior. I didn't let people walk all over me just to avoid being alone or to maintain some false sense of relationship security. I had handled the entire situation like a mature adult and had come out stronger on the other side of it. The best decision I ever made was not opening that door when she showed up crying and desperate. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is absolutely nothing at all. By refusing to engage with her manipulation tactics, I had shown both her and myself that I had real self-respect and boundaries that couldn't be crossed without serious consequences. Looking back on everything that had happened, I realized that this experience had taught me some incredibly valuable lessons about relationships, trust, and knowing my own worth. I had learned that actions speak louder than words, that consistency matters more than grand gestures, and that someone who truly loves you doesn't spend months secretly wishing they were with someone else. I had also learned that I was stronger than I had ever given myself credit for. When faced with the worst kind of betrayal from someone I had planned to spend my life with, I had handled it with dignity and strength. I had exposed the truth when it needed to be exposed, and I had walked away when walking away was the right thing to do. The woman I thought I was going to marry had turned out to be someone who was willing to live a lie for 10 months while emotionally cheating behind my back. But instead of breaking me, this experience had actually made me more confident in my ability to recognize my own worth and demand the kind of treatment I deserved. I was finally free to find someone who would choose me every single day, not someone who would settle for me while dreaming about someone else. I was free to build a relationship based on mutual respect, honesty, and genuine love, instead of one built on lies, manipulation, and emotional unavailability. The ring was returned. The truth was out. Both families knew exactly who they had been dealing with, and I could finally start moving forward with my life. It had been a painful lesson, but it was also one of the most important lessons I had ever learned. Sometimes the worst things that happen to you end up being exactly what you needed to grow into the person you were meant to become. And sometimes the best thing someone can do for you is show you exactly who they really are, even when it hurts to see it. I was 30 years old, single again, and for the first time in a very long time, genuinely excited about what the future might hold.